I want to talk about something that I think gets overlooked and overgeneralized in business and performance coaching, which is the skill of failing forward. We know that the only way to learn is through failure. You could read a book, you could get the best advice, somebody could even model for you what to do, but ultimately, when you go to do something that's new for you, it's got to improve through failure. So we know that failing forward involves repetition. But that by itself is not enough to support and ensure that we're actually mining learning from failure, because failure is painful and failure can ignite feelings of shame and feelings of anxiety. And if our response to failure is coming from a place of anxiety, then we're going to move forward practicing more anxiety. Anxiety is what ends up getting stronger. So I want to ask the question, what is your process for failing forward? And I'm really asking it, like, how do you do it? And that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to put a spotlight on this question and go, what happens in those critical moments after, so that we can make it a learning catalyzer as opposed to a meaning maker about us not being good enough, okay? So welcome to Read the Room. I'm Mary Falkenstern. Let's do this. I want to share with you a personal story. 15 years ago, I'm in grad school in Boston, and it was exam season. And so I was just like really tired of studying. And so I was, to like relieve the pressure, I had started reading The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Side plug, phenomenal resource for reconnecting to your voice, your creativity, and it's self-curated. So explore that. Part of it is taking yourself on an artist date, which is just like this solo, wherever you want to go, you do it by yourself, and it's like this date with yourself. And so I had decided to take a walk through Cambridge. So I'm on this walk at night and I pass Improv Boston and I see that they're having auditions. I have done improv in the past, but I never studied it. So I was like, this could be really fun. There's no expectations. I'm just going to show up and give it a try and see what happens. So I show up and I was in the flow. I was having so much fun. I was just like, my vitality was there. It was so wonderful. And really, that's what I wanted. And then I got cast, which sounds like a success story, doesn't it? No, because what followed was months of severe performance anxiety. The nights of rehearsals, I was sweating through my shirt. I turned into a robot in the room. Then after the performances, we would all go for beers at the bar next door, and I couldn't relax. I couldn't even have a normal conversation with people at the bar because I was still reliving this anxiety. I thought that if I just kept showing up, that it would get better. I thought that if I meditated, that somehow I would become funny. Like if I just breathed a little bit more, that somehow these tools were going to help me overcome this. And what happened was it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Eventually, I quit. I went to the director. I lied. I just said, I've got too much coursework. I can't do this anymore. Initially, I felt that physical relief of like, oh, thank God I don't have to do this anymore. But emotionally, I was holding on to that. And what I did, especially because I kept showing up, was I was like, how many months did I do this? This is definitive evidence that I'm not funny. I'm too serious. I don't belong in a room full of creative people. I'm an anxious fraud. Fast forward 5 years, okay? I'm in Rockwood Music Hall seeing a friend. My friend Zoe was performing, and her friend Rashid was also there. So we're talking, and he's like, oh, yeah, I do stand-up comedy. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I don't do comedy. It's a nightmare for me. And he was like, why? You seem so fun. Maybe because it was loud. I don't know. I thought he couldn't hear me, but I just like told him the whole story from the beginning, like all the anxiety, the shame, everything that happened after, how bad I was at it and what it meant about me. And after, he just smiles and he goes, you dropped the ball. I was like, what? He's like, you dropped the ball. Ouch. It hurts, doesn't it? We just started laughing. And you guys, I had been in the attic, locked in the attic with my shame for 5 years. And in this one instant, this instant moment, he's got me laughing. You know what happens to anxiety when you start actually really laughing? It disappears. And once that anxiety took the back door, I suddenly had this flash that I could have learned something. I could have done something different with this situation, and possibilities started opening up for me. You know what I discovered? I had a skill gap. I didn't know how to do improv. And I know I didn't know how to do improv because after that conversation with Rashid, I actually went back into improv. I studied at Upright Citizens Brigade, and now I know there's a structure to improv. I didn't have it. So here I am making this meaning that I can't do X, Y, and Z when I actually didn't know yet how to do X, Y, and Z. But because I had anxiety, I couldn't see any possibility. I was not asking any questions. So, what does this mean? Well, what could I have done differently if I had this space? So, mistake number one was I held it all in. I kept that shame private. Nobody was getting in, giving any other perspectives. Anxiety was right. That was the only story. Anytime that's happening now, that's a red flag for me that I will not learn from this experience. So, in this case, Rashid gave me a different perspective, which opened my perspective door. You could do this by yourself. Like, just what else could be true? And if you can't answer that question, you're locked in anxiety. Go for a walk. Stop asking it because you will just keep getting that same anxiety wants to be right. It has one answer and it's negative. Okay. So that was mistake number one, that I kept it to myself. Mistake number one was a misunderstanding that because I was anxious and super uncomfortable, that meant that I was actually sitting with my negative emotions, my uncomfortable emotions. I was not. I was running away from them. I was bullying them out of the room. And so they just got more scared and more aggressive in response, right? So my fear, my frustration, my embarrassment was lashing out back at me. So what I really needed to do was sit with it. And again, that's what Rashid did, was he was able to see it. And I was able to go, oh my gosh, like I was feeling the embarrassment for the first time. Okay, then I see that I have this skill gap, right? So what could I have done differently there? I could have resourced myself, guys. I could have gone up to the director and said, hey, I know that I have skills in acting. I know that I have raw talent for improv, but I don't know this structure. Can you help me structure how to learn this so that I'm a more vital part of this team? He would have said yes. And that's resourcing yourself from a place of empowerment, from a place of deep connection to ourselves. So if we pull this together, to me, the way to break down failing forward is a step-by-step flow that always follows a similar routine, just like any skill. You notice anxiety is running the show because it's a meaning-making monster. When you notice it, you go, what else could be true? Martha Beck, famously Oprah Winfrey's life coach, but she also has multiple degrees from Harvard, and she has lived through anxiety. I love how she talks about how when you experience anxiety, it makes this meaning. Say, what if the flip is true? What if, and this is Rashid literally did this for me, like that doesn't mean you don't belong, it means you do belong. And then look for evidence for that. Look for the closest, it might be the subtlest thing, but look for evidence that the opposite could be true. And you're not trying to prove that. You're just trying to diffuse anxiety. It will take the back door. As soon as there's possibility, anxiety disappears. It cannot coexist with creativity. So we do that. Experience the feelings, let it in, be compassionate to ourselves. This is emotional intelligence. I think people often draw emotional intelligence, the meaning of that to be like being able to empathize out. You can only empathize out. You can only see other people's experience to the depth that you can experience your own. So when I started to sit with embarrassment, now when I have a client that's feeling that, I don't try to rush them through it. I get it. And if we can sit with that, it becomes this superpower that allows us these new pathways to connect with other people. Then we resource ourselves. What do I need? Maybe you need to just get back up. It's just, that's it. Maybe it's just an inner block where you needed to look at it and then you can show up again. Maybe like me, you have a skill gap and you need to go seek out a resource that will help you narrow that gap. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for joining. See you next time.